Hello and welcome to the weekly Blackpool FC preview show. I'm Ged Mills, and coming up today, we'll look back on Blackpool's Easter fixtures against Swindon and Gillingham. We'll hear from former Blackpool and Lincoln man Neal Eardley on Saturday's opponents. Neil Critchley shares his thoughts ahead of the trip to Sincilbank. There's Ollie Turton on his recent form, plus Andy Preece answers some questions on the players he shared the dressing room with. Well, making his debut on the preview show is this man.
With the throw which finds Brabin. Brabin wanting it back and getting it back. Has a look. Oh, and he's found the target with an absolute rocket of a shot. What a goal from Gary Brabin.
That's right, we're pleased to welcome former Blackpool player and coach Gary Brabin in the studio. Gary, let's first of all start on that Wycombe goal. That's it was some strike, that, and obviously fond memories. Not just about that goal, but here, of course, at Bloomfield Road.
Yeah, no, I loved my time. I made no secret of the fact I enjoyed my time at Blackpool. And I think the goal, if I remember rightly, I think I just couldn't wait to get rid of it before the referee blew for a foul throw. What was Andy Preece doing taking a throw in?
But like you say, your time at Blackpool, I mean, you know, it was a great time, goals like that, but you weren't known for those sort of strikes. You were known for, you know, your demeanour on the pitch, weren't you? And was that just something that you'd developed? Was it a coaching thing? Was it someone saying, you know, you're the man to get stuck in? Or was that literally from a child you'd always been that sort of aggressive on the pitch?
I think I've always had that aggressive side to my game, but I think probably more so when you go into the professional game, you look back and, you know, as you develop from playing into coach or manager, and certainly these days there's a lot more guidance and training and analytic help that you get towards being a better player. And, you know, I look back in them days and it was only the strongest survive, and you sort of get pigeonholed a little bit to be that sort of hatchet man in midfield, if you like. And like you said, you look back on your career and I sort of look and think, you know, I had a bit more to offer than just that.
I was going to say, did you like that? Because anytime you speak to the fans now, I was speaking actually to someone this week and they said, oh, he's on the preview show. I said, Gary Brabin's on the preview show. Oh, Brabin, yeah, brilliant. Oh, he always got stuck in. Like you say, did you mind that? And did you feed off that as well? No,
don't get me wrong. I would never have changed that. That was something that was a big part of my game. But I just think you sort of, you know, years ago it was an attacking midfielder and a holding midfield, and the holding midfielder was more of the hatchet man type, and there was an attacking midfielder, whereas, you know, I used to like getting forward as well, and, you know, as the clip shows, you know, I used to enjoy that side of the game as well. But, you know, I think it was something that I think was natural inside me, and, you know, I was naturally competitive, but, you know, I think I had more to offer than just that side of the game.
Do you think you'd have lasted in today's game? What do you think of today's game as well? Sometimes you see some refereeing decisions and the fallings over and some of the play acting. What do you think you'd have survived in this day and age? Or?
No, I think a lot gets said about the play acting, but nowadays I think, again, especially the way VAR is now, you're sort of encouraged to do it. You know, if anyone touches you now in the box, you've got to go down because the proof's there that it's a foul. So, you know, although we criticise, you know, diving, and at the same time it's encouraged as well. You look at the game, I think it's progressed so much, and I think definitely for the better. But I think there's certain things where they go a little bit too far. I'm not a big fan of VAR. I don't think that helps football, but that's just my opinion. But, you know, you look at the game as a whole, I think it really has improved. I do miss the more physical side of it. I think that's been took away a little bit. I think all fans appreciate that. You want to go and see a little bit of blood and thunder on a Saturday afternoon, as well as goals, and, you know, and I think that has been took away a little bit, but I think there's certainly a lot more physical effort in terms of running, and, you know, the game has quickened up, and, you know, I think there's a lot of pluses, but I think there's certain things that you look back at and think we missed that.
It was a very different Bloomfield Road when you just look outside now, and, you know, the crowd that used to be, you know, come on the terraces when you were there was like making that big tackle as much for you as scoring a goal.
Yeah, it was. Like you said, that was, you know, it used to feed off that. You know, the crowd, I used to love, you know, you look at it as a player, and it was almost like a gladiator type. You're going into the arena, and I didn't care whether I was getting, you know, obviously you love the praise, but even when I was getting the height of abuse, I used to thrive on it. You know what I mean? I think when I used to hear that roar from the crowd, and And I used to feed off that, and I certainly missed that. Now I've stopped playing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about now Blackpool. What a run they're on at the moment. What an Easter weekend. I mean, we talked to Andy Preece about Easter weekends and how important it is that if you can get 2 wins, and especially where Blackpool are, you really do start looking up rather than thinking, oh, you know what, we may have missed an opportunity, and Blackpool are right in there now. Yeah,
definitely. I think when it was a relatively slow start for Blackpool, but I think there was a big change, behind the scenes as well as the management and players. So it takes a little bit of time to adapt, and and I think the club is certainly moving forward, moving in the right direction now, and I think we're all quite optimistic that the club can go all the way.
Yeah, and that game against Swindon always can be tricky, can't they? It's a tough place to go as well, and especially where they are in the league. But again, convincing win, could have been a lot more. And then against Gillingham, what a performance, probably the best one of the season.
Yeah, no, Gillingham have probably had a similar run to Blackpool. I think they had a slowish start, with the expectation they've got to be competing up there in the playoffs. But they've picked up and had a good run, and they're a difficult side to play against, and it was a fantastic run. Probably the one that you looked at was the sticky one, was the Swindon away. Swindon, all them clubs at the bottom now, they're fighting and scrapping for points. They need it, so it was always going to be a tough game. So 2 really good results for the club.
Well, just looking at the highlights then between Swindon and Gillingham, the Swindon game, as we said, a pretty convincing win over a team near the bottom. Gillingham, though, I mean, again, a tough game, a tough team to come to Bloomfield Road. But that third goal, Kaikai, I mean, people are talking about that as if it was a Barcelona, Real Madrid. We'd still be seeing the replays of it. I mean, great build-up. And that probably all stems from what Neil Critchley and the coaching team's been doing probably from the start of the season when they came in. Yeah,
there's nothing more pleasing as a manager or as a coach when you're seeing the work that you're putting on the training ground and it's coming into effect into games. And like you said, it was good build-up play, great little bit of individual skill from Kaikai as well, and a great goal.
And one of the goals that you really liked, and probably again has been overlooked because of the third goal, is Embleton's, the ball in from Kaikai, the cut back as well, and the finish.
Yeah, like I said, Kaikai again I thought was instrumental. Fantastic footwork in the box and little pull back for Embleton. It was a great finish. So again, it must have been a real, as well as getting a good result, when you're seeing that play, like I said, as a manager and coach, they'll be delighted.
How impressed have you been with Blackpool this season? Just the way that they've probably changed some of the game, been more of an attacking force, getting it down on the floor. Again, plenty of touches, plenty of passes, and then obviously trying to finish it off.
Yeah, it is. It's, like you said, the run. Results do make performances look worse or better, depending, like you said. It probably wasn't as bad as the results showed at the beginning of the season, and you see things coming off now, and they're managing to get momentum to go on a big run, and I think you look a strong side. You've got to, we sort of expect the team to come from nowhere and drive forward into the promotion chase, and hopefully Blackpool are that club.
Well, Jerry Yates' brace in that win over Gillingham marked a significant milestone. The Blackpool frontman became the first player since Andy Morrell in the 06-07 season to hit 20 goals for the club. To mark that occasion, here are all 20 goals in 20 seconds. Well, Gary, let's touch on Jerry Yates. I mean, first of all, it was a slow start to the season for him. It was difficult, but how tough is it sometimes coming into a new team as a striker, with a bit of a pedigree behind you to get started straight away? How difficult is that?
Yeah, well, it was evident with Yates. He comes to the club and people probably expected him to come in and score goals straight away, and he never quite found it that easy. But I think again it's a collective thing where the team, when they've recruited the player, they've probably seen him fitting into the way they want to play, and when things haven't been going according to plan on the field in terms of their build-up play. You know, Yates hasn't benefited from that. So it's probably a combination of a few things, but he's certainly looking like a real goal threat now, and you know, and I think it's all gathering momentum at the right time.
Yeah, his record is fantastic at the moment. And how much of a testament is that to the recruitment process here? Not only to bring him in and find him and just think, yes, this is the kind of striker we will need, but also the man management into, you know, making sure the confidence doesn't drop too much when he was going through that bit of a bad patch at the start. Yeah,
and I think, you know, people sort of allow for a settling in period with foreign players, if you like, but you know, sometimes it's difficult as well for players, you know, just moving, you know, a couple of 100 miles up the road, you know, and that's sometimes, you know, for whatever the reason, it might be settling house or whatever. People need time just to adapt, and you've got to be patient. And you know, like I said, he's shown he's a real proven goal scorer now, because he's overcome that slow start, and you know, he's getting them by the dozen.
Well, he's certainly settled now. 14-year record, 20 goals. How hard is that for, you know, a League One striker to get into that 20-goal mark, and how good is it for the club as well?
Well, he's a real asset now, isn't he? The club will look at him as a real asset. You know, you go into games believing he can score goals. He'll be delighted. He'll be full of confidence himself, and he'll be enjoying his football. And like you said, it's all happened at the right time.
Well, the Seasiders will be looking to make it 6 away wins in a row on Saturday when travelling to Lincoln City. And one man who knows both sides well is Neal Eardley, currently on loan at Barrow. Eardley made over 100 appearances for both Blackpool and Lincoln. The right-back sat down this week to look back on his time in Tangerine and give us his thoughts ahead of this weekend's game at Sincilbank.
It was, you know, some of the best years I've had, mate, in my career, to be honest. You know, a lot of us still talk, and you know, the lads that I was there with and things like that, and you know, even the gaffer as well, Ollie and Tomo and people like that. So it was just a great time for the town, for the football club, the fans, us as players. We all had a good time and shared some great memories. So you know, like I said, it's something that'll always, you know, hold close to me.
Given the way you like to play at right back, the style suited you, didn't it, to get forward and attack?
It did back in the day, mate, yeah. I'm not sure, you know, up and down these days, mate, it's a bit of a grind. I do my best, like, but no, you know, jokes aside, the way the gaffer wanted us to play was perfect for me. And I think not just for me, for the profile of players we had, it suited everybody. You know, we had, you know, the three midfielders that, you know, when people talk about that era of obviously Chaz, Keith and Varney, you know, you had Chaz who, you know, could do what he wanted, basically. Varney, you know, was 7, 8 out of 10 every week. You always knew what you were going to get out of Varney. And Keith, I don't think Keith, to be fair, got enough credit for what he did do with the ball, because Keith was a really good player. But Keith was always probably seen as that one that would, you know, be the rat in there for us, winning the ball back and, you know, being that nasty bit in there. So, you know, those three midfielders and obviously the lads up top, you know, Fletch, Brett, DJ, Big Ben, Billy Clark, like, they just all knew their roles. And it, like I said, it just suited everybody. And, you know, going back to myself, you know, as a fullback, just, you know, having those players in front of you and players that can pick passes out, and you know, when you are going forward and joining in, you know, those lads would be in the box if you were crossing it, and it just worked for us, mate, you know, all over the pitch. And you know, a lot of it probably it does have to go down to obviously the gaffer as well, because we worked a lot on it in training, you know, the shape and stuff. And you know, even the lads that probably didn't play as much as they would have liked always knew that if they were ever called upon, they knew their jobs. And I think whenever lads, you know, stepped in, you know, whether it was from the bench or, you know, whatever it was, we were all on the same wavelength. And I think that's why we did so well.
How frustrating the injury you got at the time in that March, and then Seamus comes in and you miss out on some of those great games.
Yeah, I think obviously it was difficult, but the one thing I would say is that Seamus came in and a lot of people say single-handedly got us promoted, which I wouldn't argue at. You know, he was a great lad. fantastic player. Obviously, his career that he's had speaks for itself. You know, he's had a brilliant career at Everton and on the international scene for Ireland, as the Republic of Ireland as well. So, you know, obviously for myself, yeah, it was disappointing. It was quite a bad hamstring that I got, so I was out for, I think it was around 8 to 10 weeks, if I remember rightly. But I got myself back fit, you know, just before the end of the season. I think that Peterborough away game towards the end of that season, I was back involved, and then obviously we ended up making the playoffs on the last day. And you know, unfortunately for me, I wasn't making the match. You know, I think it was 16 back then. You know, I wasn't making the bench, but I was part of the squad, and you know, it's still something I look back on as great memories, even though I didn't play, which I would have loved to. Obviously, I think all players do, but it was about the team, and the team were absolutely fantastic. And I think that run we went on when Seamus came in, I think he had a real instrumental part in that. So, you know, I've got, like I said, nothing but fond memories and great time.
You saved scoring your first goal for Blackpool for the top flight. You play against Everton, and it turns out an all-round special occasion, doesn't it? You go and score your first goal, score it against Everton, and it's on your birthday.
Yeah. I've still got my you know, I kept the shirt and I had it framed, and you know, there's a couple of pictures in there of me, you know, taking the free kick and things like that. So that's obviously nice, you know. I think as a player, you tend to keep things like that close, and something again, mate, that I'll never ever forget. You know, I think the fact that it was against Everton. You know, I grew up as a Liverpool fan as a boy, and you know, to get your first Premier League goal against Everton on your birthday is just, couldn't write it, mate. And you know, like I said, I'll never forget it. It's a shame we didn't get the 3 points on the day, but you know, I think a point at home to Everton at the time was probably, you know, a good result for us, really.
In recent seasons, you spent 3 years playing for Lincoln under the Cowleys, and then under Michael Appleton, who you had briefly at Blackpool as well. The Seasiders play Lincoln this weekend. What sort of test can they expect from some of the teammates that you played with, and who are the people to watch out for?
I think it'll be a good game. Two teams that you know want the same thing out of this season. Both going, you know, both up there in the league. I think obviously at the minute, you know, the momentum's definitely with Blackpool, 13 unbeaten. Doing really well. Got some real firepower, obviously, in Yates, and I think Lincoln. I think it's one I think they've only won one in the last 9. So I think this little break that they've had to have due to COVID, you know, might give them a chance to sort of regroup and refresh. And I'm sure they'll be looking forward to getting back. You know, I'm you know, back to normal really, and playing a game and training again. So it'll be a real tough game. You know, they've got some good lads there, and obviously, you know, you've got McGrandles, Jones, Scully, the young lad that they've got on loan from City, Rogers. You know, they've got some real good lads. Obviously, I know Harry Anderson really well. Played with him for years at Lincoln, and although he's not featured, is a real threat. I think they've missed George Grant, who I also played with through injury. I think they've really missed him because he's been a big part of their season this year with goals and assists. But no, I think what to expect is just some real athleticism and, you know, good play from them, because to be fair to Michael, he's got them playing some real good stuff.
That was Neal Eardley there speaking to the Blackpool FC preview show. Gary, I mean, let's touch on something that he said there about that season in 2010 when players used to come in, they dropped out, but there was no moaning. It was, you know, you knew you had a job to do. There was one common cause. You know, how difficult sometimes is that in a squad to find that if you're on the bench for maybe 2 or 3 games, to not be sort of having a bit of a moan to the manager, and you know that, you know, there's one common goal in this. How difficult is that sometimes?
Yeah, and again, that's another thing that takes time. You know, people, you know, invest in a new manager or a head coach, and he comes into the club, and you know, he's got embed that philosophy and that culture in the club, and it takes time. You've got to recruit the right players with the right temperament. People have all got to understand their roles and responsibilities when they're on the pitch, and if you can get them together and galvanise them to all believe in the same thing, I think it's a real powerful tool to have.
And when you, listen to Neal Eardley there, for me it just sounds like exactly what's going on at the moment. Players that are coming in are just sitting into those jobs, doing a really good job, then sitting back out, might be injury, might be suspended, whatever it is, and another player comes in and just performs at the same level. How impressive have you been with how quickly that's happened in this team?
Yeah, and I think it's more evident with Blackpool because they have had to call on a lot of players in terms of injuries or suspensions, and and so there has been probably a big turnaround in players. So it's more evident, I think, especially seeing the run they're going on now. They're making changes, and it's you can't tell by looking at the performances.
Well, this weekend's opponents, Lincoln. You had a few appearances there for them. What is it like at Lincoln and Sinsel Bank and the fans? What is it like, and what was your time like there?
I enjoyed my short time there. There was some good lads there, and they had that old-fashioned siege mentality when I went there. They had the lad playing the drums behind the goal, and every time you got a corner there was a siren going off. So it was good. I enjoyed it. It was a good experience, but I think certainly the new manager this season, he's completely changed the culture of the club in terms of they're playing a lot more football, and I think they've had a lot of success. You can't take nothing away from that, but he has tried to change it, and he's had a great start. They've probably not in a good run at the moment. I think it's only 2 wins in the last 13 games, but he's given them something to enjoy on a Saturday watching the football, and they'll be looking to at least get in the playoffs. So it'll be a tough game, but like I said, I enjoyed me time there, but it was only very, very short.
Well, here is Neil Critchley's thoughts ahead of the match.
We've got 9 games to go, but we've only got a short period to play them in. So as each game ticks by and there's less points to play for, the importance of the games becomes greater. But we just try to remain calm and consistent in how we approach every game, and we only focus on the next game. I know that's an old cliche, but we do. We just look at Lincoln and think, how can we win this game? What do we need to do? We're in good form away from home. We know this will be a difficult game. We want our away form to continue, but we always have to be ready for different circumstances, different scenarios, what ifs. And I think that the more you speak about them things, and that's not being negative, the more you speak about what could happen, what we're trying to do, then you're preparing for the players for all kinds of situations, and therefore you're just better prepared on the pitch to deal with whatever comes at you. And I think our players have shown that they're capable of dealing with different teams, different formations and different circumstances during the game.
Well, Gary, let's look at Lincoln's form. We've touched on it a little bit, but like I say, they started unbelievably well, and I think people thought that this could be their time to get into the Championship, but in recent form, since probably the end of January, it's really sort of dropped off for them. So maybe what a good time to play Lincoln at the moment. Yeah,
it was always going to be hard for them to sustain it. I don't think they were fancied at the beginning of the season and had a great start. And you sort of looked at Blackpool included, a lot of the so-called favourites for being hadn't really got going. There's some big clubs in Division 1 and they just hadn't really got started, whereas Lincoln led the way, and it was always going to be hard, I think, to sustain that sort of pressure, if you like, at the top of the league. So they're in a bit of bad form at the moment. You can look at it 2 ways. Sometimes it's the right time to play them, but also it could also be a little bit of a bit of a curse playing against teams like that.
3-2, Lincoln won here. Will they be sort of reflecting on that, or is it all about just what's happening right now?
Well, I'm sure they'll use that as a yardstick, but at the same time they'll know Blackpool's a completely different team than what they played, in terms of, they've turned their fortune round, and the form's flipped on its head, if you like, and so yeah, I think it'll be a real good game.
Well, one man who has impressed this season is Ollie Turton. Now in his 4th season at the club, Turton has shared his thoughts on the season so far for the Seasiders.
it's been a good season for us up to now. Obviously we started slow, but ever since that slow start, I think we've progressed, and after each game we're getting stronger and stronger, which is now obviously working well for us. And hopefully we keep on building on that and see where it takes us.
Yeah, and breeding a winning mentality.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think each player in the team has that winning mentality, and I feel like we've progressed from the start of the season where we were maybe losing games where we should have won or at least got something out of it. I feel like now we're going into games, if we fall behind or something's not going for us, I feel like we're able to turn that round.
The results have been all the more incredible given the amount of players that have been missing through injury, and it says a lot about the squad depth.
Yeah, exactly. I think each and every player's done their bit this season, especially with the amount of injuries this season. I can imagine every club's dealt with it, but I feel like us as a club, we've dealt with that really well. Each player's come in and done a great job for the team, and it's not weakened us at all.
Given the players missing, it's meant that you've performed in a number of roles this season. Just talk us through, particularly that switch to centre half and how you found it.
Yeah, like I say, I probably played there a couple of times before. I feel when you do move into centre half, obviously I think you have to concentrate more, work on your positioning, and obviously you have to try and control the line a lot more. But yeah, no, I felt quite comfortable there. Obviously it was a good test for me to go and play there against Peterborough. Obviously they were a really good attacking side, so I had to be on top of my game, and like I say, going to playing centre half, but it was obviously tough. But with the lads around me that were playing so well, and as a team we were defensively so well set up, it made it a lot easier for me.
I think in your time with this club you've played right back, left back, centre midfield. Do you have a sort of greater understanding, because you've played in all these different roles, of what's required from your teammates around you and what's required from yourself? Yeah,
no, I've learnt a lot from playing different positions, and obviously it just helps with my development. I know I'm 28 now, but you like to think you're still learning, and I want to be able to play different positions. Like, I'm happy to be out on the pitch, and like I say, if the manager can trust me to play them positions, I can.
Do you not mind that, even though you're a right back, that you've got that sort of utility tag in some ways?
I'd like to say I'm a team player, so I want to do what's best for the team. So no, I really don't mind playing different positions if it means I'm doing a job for the team and helping the team out as best I can.
There's a couple we've not seen you do yet. One up front, but looking at your goal record, that might not be as good, and in goal. Any good at either?
I can imagine I run about a lot when I'm playing up front, but a bit like a headless chicken really. I'll leave that up to Jez and Gaz and Ellis, and I'll leave that to them to do all the goal scoring. But I've not scored this season. I wish I can chip in with a few. Well, try and get at least a couple of goals. Well, at least one really. But yeah, whatever I can do to try and help the team win games. Yeah, I'll do my best.
Obviously, been a big change in the squad this season, and Neil Critchley's now been here over 12 months. Is somebody that you knew previously though from your time with Crewe?
Yeah, he was my youth team manager for 2 years. I probably owe a lot to him, because I think he probably made me the player I am. He's probably helped me to have a career. I'll probably say I wasn't the best when I was a kid, so going into the youth team, working under Critch, he's from that age, he really did bring me on as a player, and it's funny how small world football is to be playing under him again, and like I say, I've loved every minute.
When you've played in your regular position, which we'll obviously call right back, how much have you relished that competition this season from having Jordan Gabriel to compete with?
Yeah, it's been great for me, because Jordan's he's a brilliant lad, and he's equally a brilliant footballer as well. He's going to have a real good career. For myself, I feel like he's really pushed me on to having to play well. Even when I've been ill, when I had the virus, he stepped in, and he played well, really well. So yeah, I think every team, every position needs competition, because I think it does push you forward.
And the games are ticking off now. How much are you looking forward to this running?
Yeah, we've put ourselves in a great position, but we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We just have to take game by game. So Lincoln's next game, we focus on getting 3 points there, and wherever that takes us to the end of the season, it will be what it will be. So we just take game by game.
Well, that was Ollie Turton there. Brabs, you obviously work with Ollie Turton. How important of a player is he to this football club? And, you know, he's just a player that can play all over the pitch as well.
Yeah, he's a real good professional, Ollie. He was fantastic to work with. Mr. Dependable, you know, like you said, he's played in numerous positions this season, and, you know, he'll never let you down. He's a real good, honest competitor and a good footballer as well.
What is it like to, as a coach, as a manager, to have someone that can play, you know, in lots of different positions? You know, how much of a useful tool is a player like that? Yeah,
it is. It comes in handy, especially when you've had suspensions or injuries. When you've got someone like Ollie, he just won't let you down. You know, so you might have a concern, you've got a key player out injured, and you know if you put Ollie in there, it'll be a different, not necessarily the same type of performance, but you know he won't let you down. You know, you can trust that position.
And finally, Andy Preece has taken a break from being with us in the studio this week, but that hasn't stopped him from telling us about some of his teammates from his time in Tangerine.
Tough one, that. Best trainer was Chris Beach. Always give everything, and always be working out after in the gym and things like that. So always trying to get the best out of himself. Joker, I think Gary Brabin, always making you laugh constantly. Couldn't be serious. Could never have a serious time with him. So he'd be the one who would be always up to something. Worst dressed, I think it'd have to be David Linnigan. Just that he'd come in off being on the farm or whatever. So when he came in, he'd have his wellies on and stuff like that. Bring his dog into training and stuff like that. So I'd have to give it to Leonard. I don't think it was a bright change in him, to be honest. I'll go Lee Philpott. He's become an agent, and he thinks he knows a little bit about everything. So I'll give it to Lee Philpott. A lot of competitive people there. I'll go Andy Gauk. He just always wanted to win everything. Always found a reason why it wasn't fair, and he had no luck or whatever. So I'll go Andy Gauk. Ooh, some horrible lads in there who loved to put their foot in. I'll go Marvin Bryan. Was hard, you know. He'd go into challenges and wouldn't think that it's training. You know, he'd train as he played. Probably Tony Ellis, brilliant, dropping his shoulder, going one way, you wouldn't know whether he's going left, right. Probably a similar trick all the time, but you just didn't know which way he was going. Scored some great goals, dropping his shoulder, and it was the same in training. Best player. Again, a tough one. I think James Quinn was a great player. He had some unbelievable ability, and probably could have even gone better than what he did do. So I'll go on ability, probably Quinny. I'll go Andy Morrison. He loves a song, and he's not got a bad voice, to be fair to him. He loved a bit of Elvis. Elvis. He liked to come out with a bit of Elvis. I've seen it. Well, he sung a Tom Jones one not so long ago when they won the league. He sung Tom Jones and put his own spin on it. He's not bad. I think I'd be up there on that one probably. Worst trainer. I think I'd have to go Brett Ormrod. In training, really, that wasn't his thing. But you know, you get him out on a pitch on a Saturday or a Tuesday night, and then he produce. I just think he saved it all for a match day.
Well, Gary, he names you there as best joker, does Preece. I'm going to actually ask you first of all, what category would you put Andy Preece in?
After that video, most boring. I think he'd be one of the worst trainers, Preece.
Yeah.
Well, he admitted that himself,
Yeah.
didn't he? He wasn't a great trainer. But to be honest, I don't think there was like any real bad trainers. You know, I think it was probably hard for him to answer because it was quite a mixed bag. You know, come training, I don't think anyone was really bad. You know, I don't think anyone was overly aggressive. You know, so I think there was some difficult questions really because it was a good atmosphere, a good changing room.
It's tough, I suppose, isn't it, the trainer one as well, because even if you are a bad trainer, but actually you do it on the pitch, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think about with Brett was always honest, you know, so he wasn't like a bad trainer because he was, you know, he used to always give his all, but I think I've said it as well, when he first come to the club, he was very raw, Brett. So, you know, there was some good players at the club and, you know, we'd have training and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but, you know, when he first come to the club, there'd be things bouncing off him and things like that. So, you know, I think he took him a bit of time to get used to full-time football and so I think that's probably where Brett probably got a little bit of stick there.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for joining us on today's preview show. Remember, you can tune into Blackpool's trip to Lincoln live by purchasing an iFollow match pass from the club's official website. Thanks for watching and we'll see you again next week.